This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi everyone, I am Meteo Mundo Chief Meteorologist Rusty McCranie, and thank you for joining me here on this early Tuesday morning, November the 14th. Coming up here in this forecast, I've got the latest on that disturbance, which is still gathering and slowly developing in the Southwest Caribbean. Going to take a look at the newest information for you, where I expect that to travel and some of the significant impacts it could bring through portions of the Caribbean islands. We've got another non-tropical low that might be developing off the east coast of Florida that could be impacting the Bahamas with a lot of wind and rain ahead as well. So as we get into it, thank you so much for liking the video. If you want to share this video with someone who you think might need to know this information, and of course, please subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Thanks, friends. Let's get into it here. We'll zoom in a little bit closer. And again, still a very high chance that this broad area of showers and storms will become a tropical depression or maybe even a tropical storm. Over a 70% chance from the hurricane center of development. That's why you have this area in red. Now, it is really slow to get going. I've been watching this area for more than a week, and that meandering aspect of it has given us plenty of time to watch this. But the problem that it's going to do is that meandering to the north and to the east is going to provide the opportunity for some very heavy rainfall through portions of the Caribbean islands before we really start to see the center of circulation wrap up. Now, early on this Tuesday morning, we have a flare-up of showers and storms, which will be hugging the Central American coastline. This has kind of been the trend the last several days, especially for the eastern and the northern coastlines of Honduras down towards Nicaragua, and then through portions of Costa Rica and Panama. Again, right along that coast, these showers and storms really flare up with the heat of the day, and they produce some very heavy rain. Now, on board later, of course, as this begins to shift north into the east, we'll start to see places like the Cayman Islands, but especially Jamaica, and then Hispaniola, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic and the eastern side of Cuba get in on this moisture act. And there is just so much moisture to play with this system here. When I show you the water vapor imagery, you're going to see a lot of greens and blues. And again, that's just a huge blob of saturated air. It's like a wet sponge that's going to be squeezed out. And so one of my primary concerns, especially from Wednesday until Saturday, is going to be for the amount of rain that could potentially fall up through Jamaica and Hispaniola, eastern sides of Cuba, maybe even the Turks and the Caicos. Immediate threats would be some heavier rain in portions of Central America for you here. But again, just an abundant amount of moisture. There's another storm system coming through the southeast United States. That's going to spin up a non-tropical low off the east side of Florida, and that's going to bring some wind and rain to portions of the Bahamas. So let's take a look at our future track model here. Several things to get into. We'll start off with the reflectivity here. Let me switch it. I was just kind of looking at a couple things right before I recorded this, but we'll start off with what's happening here in the GFS model. We've got three different models we're going to look at here in this forecast video. We, first of all, don't have an invest yet, okay? So we're still relying on our major global models. Once we get an invest, we'll get more of our tropical suites of models coming into play, and we'll really be able to break things down. But I have said this the last several days, the GFS model continues to be very consistent on the track, on the timing, and somewhat on the intensity. It's beginning to weaken a little bit, and that European model, the GFS model intensity, is beginning to get a little bit more in line with each other. So really, again, all systems appear to be a go, if you will, for development here in the Southwest Caribbean as we get into Wednesday and Thursday, and then moving up to the north and to the east. But ahead of it, again, really slow movement spells heavy rain over one location for a long period of time. And that's going to be one of the big concerns that I have. This is even before we even talk about the wind threat. So again, as we start off this Thursday morning, we'll have some rain right around the Central American coastline. These showers and storms will once again flare up in the afternoon hours. Places like Panama City and San Jose could get some heavier downpours in and around those urban areas. Then as we get into tomorrow. We'll start to see some of that rain move up towards Jamaica and then move in towards Hispaniola and eastern Cuba. And that will just continue to be the trend the deeper into the week that we go. Okay, so again, today, mainly still dry with just a few downpours for Jamaica, but starting tomorrow, starting on a Wednesday through Thursday and Friday, this is when we really start to see that heavy moisture on the northeast side of where that center of circulation is going to try and develop. And I'll show you some of the potential rainfall totals, but they could be quite significant, and be quite honest, depending on where they fall, it could be life-threatening, okay? We're talking about well over 10 inches of rain on the conservative side for some of these areas. Now, I hope that a lot of that heavy rain just somehow misses the islands and falls in the open waters of the Caribbean, but you get the idea that there is a huge slug of moisture coming in with this system as it moves up to the north and to the east. And again, it's very slow to move through places like Jamaica and Hispaniola and eastern Cuba. It will accelerate very quickly once it gets north of Hispaniola through the Turks and Caicos. It will bring some rain to the Turks and Caicos and the Bahamas and Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, but I'm really focused right now on the heaviest rain being Jamaica, Hispaniola, especially the Haiti side, and potentially the eastern sides of Cuba as well. So let me zoom out. Let's throw this back into motion here and kind of get a broader view. So we're going to see this develop, move north and east late in the week, through the weekend, across Hispaniola. But again, remember, Hispaniola is a very mountainous island, so this could try and rip apart the center of circulation. But as this moves north and east, it already begins to kind of merge with this mid-latitude cyclone that's coming off the east coast of the United States with this cold front. And that's one reason why this could become a wind maker very quickly here for the Turks and Caicos, southeast Bahamas, and then eventually for Bermuda. It kind of elongates itself very quickly. So I think it's going to be a tropical system as it moves through Hispaniola and Cuba and maybe the Turks and Caicos, but quickly becoming extratropical here. Remember, we're getting into the third week of November, so we can get these hybrid systems to evolve very, very quickly. So that's kind of the look at the reflectivity. Let's go ahead and take a look at the rain totals because I've just mentioned it so much. I think that's the next thing I want to look at here. So you're looking at the GFS model rainfall totals over the same time frame, and we'll look at the European rainfall totals as well. And believe it or not, they're higher than what I'm going to show you here. So the models are in agreement that a significant amount of rain is going to fall along the path of where this disturbance goes. Again, using disturbance broadly, could be a depression, could be tropical storm vents. Low end chance it doesn't develop, but most models make this at least a tropical depression here in the Caribbean. So again, we're looking at rainfall totals, and really, again, it's not just through the 19th here. We can kind of back this up even towards, let's say, Friday and Saturday, and you can see that most of that heavy rain, if I kind of just take this slowly here, tomorrow we start to pick up the rain into Thursday, and especially on late Thursday into Friday, and early on Saturday. That's kind of the time frame for some of these areas. But again, you're looking at anywhere you see the green, over a foot of rain, okay? And that's the highest that this legend goes here. And again, it's the same thing that the GFS model painted on yesterday, where there's a significant amount of rain on the eastern side of Jamaica and not nearly as much on the western side. And that's because it has the center of circulation going right here. And on the western side, a lot less rainfall. It's such a close shave. I think all of Jamaica needs to pay very close attention for the heavy rainfall potential. I don't think we're going to have this sharp grade A. I don't think we're going to have 8-9 inches on the eastern side of the island and just 1 or 2 on the western side. I think it's going to be a lot more somewhere in the middle or even slightly higher depending on that track. And again, especially the GFS is really painting on some significant rain for portions of Haiti. As you get back towards Port-au-Prince, you're looking at maybe 8, 9, 10 inches of rain along the coastline and towards the kind of the western jut there, if you will, over a foot of rain. Back towards Santo Domingo and the Dominican Republic, 7, 8 inches of rain. And remember, Haiti and Hispaniola in general is a very mountainous terrain in the interior sections of the island. So this could lead to some very big issues with mudslides, some life-threatening flash flooding in this area. We're going to have to keep a really close eye on the rainfall potential with this system in Hispaniola. Portions of Jamaica does look to be a little bit more calm and docile, if you will, towards Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, but some heavier rain could fall there. And then you notice, again, I'm not really talking much about the rainfall potential in the Turks and Caicos because the system moves so quickly when it gets north of Hispaniola that rain is not going to sit in any one location for very long. So it's just interesting to note that we have really two maximums of concerns. The first is going to be the rainfall totals for Hispaniola, Jamaica, maybe eastern Cuba, and then that wind, that kind of gale force threat in portions of the western side of the Atlantic. Now, the interesting thing is not with this system, but with that other area of low pressure developing, we can have some very heavy rainfall totals in the northwest side of the Bahamas. So again, two different areas, but places like Freeport and Lucaya and Marsh Harbor and Nassau, maybe a maximum of 4 or 5 inches of rain. Same thing towards Alistown and Bimini. 6, 7 inches of rain here kind of as a maximum. I don't know if we're going to get that high of an amount, but it is very widespread. The GFS model on painting some exceptional rainfall totals as that non-tropical low tries to spin up in a broad way just off of the east coast of Florida. Elsewhere with this system, again, I want to focus on Central America real quick and Panama City. Again, 4 or 5 additional inches of rain from what you've already seen is possible. About the same number as you slide up your way towards Costa Rica. It gets a little bit less, generally speaking. That's too far, Rusty, the farther north that you go, except for a maximum right there along the Honduras, Nicaraguan eastern coastline. Places like Roatan, maybe 3 or 4 inches of rain. San Pedro Sula, Belize City, a couple of inches. I'm not too concerned there. ABC Islands and anywhere east, just far enough east of the maximum, if you will, of that heavier rain to not have much. And again, a couple of inches of rain in Trinidad and Tobago, but this is all localized. This has nothing to do with the system that we're talking about here in the Southwest Caribbean. Okay, let's look at the wind gusts out of this as well. So we've kind of taken a look, very deep dive into the rain. Let's look at the wind. And I mentioned that the GFS is a little bit weaker. It still supports a tropical storm. You are looking at the wind gusts here. So these are not sustained winds. And again, it's the same area. It tries to wrap itself up right near the eastern side of Jamaica as it's moving over Hispaniola. But again, if the center of circulation moves over Hispaniola and it's weak to begin with, it's a minimal tropical storm, something like that, that island could rip apart that center in a hurry. And again, already as it gets just north of the island, it's going to try and transition into an extratropical system. If I zoom this out, you're going to see this elongated area of wind. And again, initially, that northern area, look here, look at that wind near Nassau and Freeport and Lucaya, and then that kind of spins up north and east, and then right kind of this axis from Bermuda all the way down to our tropical system. We really get this elongated kind of frontal boundary here, so it's going to get absorbed into a frontal boundary and quickly race its way north and east. So gale force conditions are certainly likely with this scenario in the southeast Bahamas and the Turks and Caicos. So wind more than rain there, but rain in a significant potential amount for Jamaica and Hispaniola. So that's kind of the point I want to get across here on this Tuesday morning. Look, we got to keep a close eye on this. Nothing is set in stone, but based on the big models here, that's kind of what I'm seeing. I can switch over to the NAM model, and we can take a look at the same parameters here. Now, the NAM is not going to go as far out in time, but it gets us kind of far enough out in time. So this is going to be the wind out of the NAM model, and you'll start to see that it wraps it up a little bit quicker than the GFS does, but it still keeps it relatively weak. Now, the NAM model is going to take us out into Friday, and that's it for now here on what I can show you, but you can start to see those wind gusts begin to pick up. On the reflectivity product here with the NAM model, it's about the same scenario here for some reason. Let me flip this around. For some reason, it wanted to reverse its time periods, which is never great. I'm just adjusting the time behind the scenes to allow it to jitter and spin. But on this NAM model, so again, GFS, now NAM, we'll look at the European model coming up. It's slightly to the south and east of where kind of the development of the GFS is. That would be a little bit better overall for Jamaica because, again, we want to keep the center east of you. Now, unfortunately, I don't know how we keep the center to the east of Hispaniola. And again, that would bring the strongest winds, but then that highest moisture content on the northeast side of this center of circulation. And so it's going to be rough. You can see the NAM, again, it's still fairly sloppy by Friday, but it's trying to spin it up just like the GFS and the European is. Speaking of the European model, let's bring this on. I'm going to slip this over here real quick because I want you guys to get a full scale look at this. So European model pressure tracks, okay, and I'm going to let this loop a couple of times. Let's let it get through the end of the cycle here, and then we'll get back into it. We're going to start off on our Thursday. I want you to notice two things. One, again, Still developing on Thursday here. Look off the east coast of Florida, just off of Grand Bahama and Walker's Key. We get this low developing there. That's going to be a huge wind maker for the Northwest Bahamas. Then that European model slips it basically right in between Haiti and Cuba. Again, keeping the center of circulation just east of places like Kingston and Portmore, just east of Jamaica. But again, it's such a close shave. We can't be talking about certainties as of yet. And you can see that slow development here. Again, weaker, now a little bit stronger, slipping through, and then racing off north and east as it begins to merge with that frontal boundary. So I got to tell you, the European model, the GFS model, overall solutions are very much in agreement, relatively speaking. We've got, again, a closed low, which would support at least a tropical depression, if not a tropical storm. We've got the same kind of track. We've got the same kind of pressure, and we have the same kind of rain. This is the European model rainfall totals. This is through Monday, okay? And I want to push this out of the way a little bit more because I want you to notice what it is showing. A maximum on this map of 21.5 inches of rain. That would be right in between Jamaica and Haiti, and I hope that much doesn't fall. My goodness, that would be devastating, and if anything like that falls, I hope it is in the open waters. But look at the swath of rain on the European model. Same as the GFS, eastern side of Jamaica, right through portions of Hispaniola, especially on the Haiti side and the eastern tip of Cuba. Notice again, not nearly as much rain for the Turks and Caicos and the southeast Bahamas because simply of the forward speed. So you have the two major global models in concurrence with significant rainfall for those areas. That's going to be one of the big stories. So watch and wait mode, areas that should be on alert. And again, friends, check in with your local officials, okay? If you know anyone who lives in these areas, just make sure that they understand what might be happening with them. We may not get a strong tropical storm, okay? Remember, it is the third week of November, but the rainfall potential with this in some of these areas could be quite significant and life-threatening. So my friends in Jamaica, got to pay very close attention. Cayman Islands, I'm including you again just because, you know, look, there's still time for this to develop and maybe slip farther west than what I think. But at this point in time, I would think you're too far west to see the most significant impacts. Certainly not for the eastern side of Cuba, Haiti and the Dominican Republic, the Turks and Caicos, and the southeast Bahamas. Those are the areas that really need to stay vigilant here over the next week or so. We'll get back over to the product here in a second. I want to take myself off camera and just remind everyone that Meteo Mundo is across all social media platforms. You can find us in all different places like Instagram and TikTok, Facebook page, and an email page as well. And we've got all of that covered for you. Okay, so back over here, I do want to get into a little bit more about what's going to be happening in the Bahamas. So let me bring myself back on camera here. And let's talk about what's going to be happening over the next couple of days. So I'm going to switch to a high resolution model here, the HRRRRRRR. It's the high resolution rapid refresh. There's only 3 R's, but I joke around a lot that there's too many R's in this model name. What you're going to see is a lot of wind-driven rain here over the next couple of days. I mean, all the way down into the central Bahamas. It's going to get wet, and it's an amazing amount of rain. Look at this. Look what this thing tries to do. We have this low trying to wrap up in the northern side of Gulf of Mexico. It'll slip over the peninsula of Florida and then try and kind of hold together or even get a little bit stronger on the eastern side here just north of, again, Grand Bahama. But look at the heavy rain that this model is bringing on. I mean, we're just inundated in rain here as we get into tomorrow night. It's an amazing amount of rain that's being pulled north with this low. So, my friends in the Bahamas, I'm going to be keeping a really close eye out for you. This is potentially some very heavy rain. Obviously, sea conditions and boating in general is going to be no good. And then the wind is going to be a huge factor as well. This is the winds. Now, look, maybe we don't really start to see a maximum of wind until Friday and Saturday, until that low sneaks off the east coast of Florida. But you just want to talk about a rough, windy forecast over the next several days. These are gusts, again, on the HRRR model, which are 20 and 30 knots, pretty consistent throughout all of the Northwest and the central Bahamas. And they pick up a little bit right at the end, right as we get into Friday evening. They maximize even a little bit higher. It's a rough forecast there. And again, this is just one kind of step in time, I'll switch back over to the GFS model here. And again, looking at the winds, I'm just going to single frame this. Well, now let's loop it. Let's loop it. Let me loop it here through the 18th. I think that's a good idea. And the reason why is, and I'll stop this because it's already loaded up and ready to go. Look at what it tries to do. This is the GFS model again. Now, the strongest winds might just basically ride the Gulf Stream north away from the islands, but could be pretty rough for Grand Bahama here for the next day or two. Same thing, and not the next day or two, but the end of the week for a day or two in places like Grand Bahama and Abaco, maybe as far south as Andros and New Providence and Eleuthera as well. It's going to be rough. That's no fun. And again, eventually this all kind of merges. And if you know anyone in Bermuda, let them know there's some heavy, heavy wind coming their way. If you're watching for Bermuda, I'll keep you updated as well. But that would be kind of the next area that would catch some of that very heavy wind potential. Okay, friends, that I think is going to do it for this video. Again, this disturbance with a high chance of development. I'll continue to provide you updates, have at least another forecast video coming up later today. Be looking to go live again as we go through the week. I think, maybe starting live on a Wednesday evening would be probably a good idea. And then we'll keep you updated here on the community page when I expect to go live. Come and join us. We'll chat. We'll talk about everything. Keep you updated. Again, check in with your local officials and your local government for any emergency preparedness in these areas. But please as well, continue to check in here. I got you covered. Make sure, if you wouldn't mind, to like the video, subscribe if you're not a subscriber. And again, we'll see you real soon. Have a great rest of your Monday. I'll be back real soon for you here, right here at Meteo Mundo.